So what's annoying about Gary's approach and in general, little O objectivity's approach to these problems with moral relativism or physical relativism is just a stubborn, I mean, it looks intentional. It's a straw manning, it looks intentional, but it's really just probably framing, explained by framing, and the fact that facts bounce off of frames not able to, incorporate them. You might go out there and find some relativist that says, yeah, killing's not wrong because it's all relative. But that's not what most of them say. That's not what I say. That's not what I heard Hannibal Barca saying. Right? We think murder is wrong, stealing is wrong. Well, the only disagreement we're really having, not with you as individuals because you're confused, but with people that might have positions similar to yours about moral relativism, is if something like murder can be explained as a moral wrong relativistically. That's the dispute. And when you say that we're not against those things, we don't think they are wrong, just because we explain morals a more accurate way, according to us, that take into account, the problems, the moral issues, And people want to act like, oh no, it must be prescriptive if you want to make a law. Well, no, I believe in speed limit laws, and it's not because it's immoral to go 65 miles per hour, And what you don't get is when you want to present an objective explanation, that means you have to do it in terms of objects and their essential properties. Right? That's the problem, is there's no such thing as a classical object, and the properties are not essential, they're relative. So for example, you have a red car driving down the road, it's 1.5 tons. Okay, so it's got properties, velocity, its color, its mass. But we know velocity is relative. That goes back to Galileo. If you want to deny that that's relative, then you're denying science all the way back to Galileo. Do you know what it means that it's relative? It means it's not an inherent property of the vehicle. It's not an essential property of the vehicle. It is a relative thing between that vehicle and something else. And the color also relative. The car is not in possession of redness. It's painted with red paint that reflects light, which, if and only if it strikes a human retina, becomes the human color known as red. The mind. It's relative to all of these systems interacting. And mass as well. If you have a 1 pound lump of clay, is its mass an inherent property? Because that 1 pound lump of clay could be made into 2 half-pound lumps of clay. And indeed, it is made of 2 half-pound lumps of clay. So does it have 1 pound as its inherent mass, or is that really just the sum of the inherent mass of the 2 parts? Alright, and I'd like to start you on velocity because that one's undeniable and less confusing, should be less confusing, even for you guys. See? So the problem is that you have to come up with a bunch of objects that have properties where all of the math works out. It doesn't work like that way, and we know why, because we have been empirical and we've looked at nature and we see that everything breaks down into systems, right? Systems don't have inherent properties, they have emergent properties that emerge from the behavior of the system that can be called properties, because that's where the things are in your mind. That's what has properties. It's things in your mind, the data structures that you and your brain use to keep track of phenomena, which are not object-oriented, but energy, mass, and time relationship-oriented. And you can't face any of this, so you have to pretend that we're here, like Maslux thinks, that if I was the head of NASA, we never would have gone to the moon. I don't believe there is a perfect science, but for some reason he thinks I'd wait around for a perfect science to do an engineering task. As if I would point out that no bridge is perfect and can withstand any sort of natural disaster. And that would mean that I don't believe we can build bridges. That would mean that I don't want to build a bridge. Right? Because it's not infinite. If that bridge can't be infinitely strong and withstand, Earth colliding with another planet, well, that's not good enough for me. But does that make sense when I'm a skeptic and I don't believe there is such a system? No, it does not. I have a very engineering point of view. Things have to be good enough to meet the specifications that are a part of the goal of getting to the moon, or building a bridge strong enough to drive a car across, or strong enough to withstand an earthquake. It's the people that say that knowledge can be perfect, that should be our standard. They're the ones that have to explain how we're accomplishing all this engineering without that perfect knowledge. They say it would have to be perfect. And two people would have to have the same definition of a word to convey it. It would have to, because our imagination can't think of any other way. We don't know that there might be ways to talk about the material world, about the physical world, about consequences, other than objects that have properties. That's the only possible way. It's a 2,000-year-old way. Aristotle thought it up. He wouldn't have made a mistake. It works pretty good because of the way the mind works. But we've done enough physical science now to see, hey, the real world doesn't work exactly the way our mind works. Who'd have thunk it? They're related. It would appear they're related. We can find the relations and the relationships. And we can triangulate a great many facts worth betting on. Like betting you could make it to the moon and back. If you want to persist in your straw man approach of, well, you're denying science, I'm like, no, I'm pointing out science. No, you're denying it. Well, no, I'm pointing out. No, I'm sure you're denying it. I don't want to talk to you. You're denying it's wrong to have your balls in a vice. Well, I don't know. If instead of me, if you've got Hitler's balls in a vice and you're kind of pissed at him, I don't think that's making a world a worse place. And if you have my balls in a vice, I'm not going to, I know I'll be in a tough position there, but it's not going to fool me into thinking you're the whole universe, and thus the universe has my balls in a vice. You're just the universe's vessel. No, I'm not going to think that. You're not the whole universe, no matter what you accomplish against me. Anyway, if you choose to not understand, or you simply are incapable, either way, there's very little I can do for you that I haven't done already.